You share a bed, a kitchen, and a life, but you have not felt truly seen in years. That is the quietest heartbreak there is. Being physically present, being physically touched, even, and still feeling completely invisible. And the hardest part is that there is no dramatic moment to point to. No big fight, no obvious betrayal, just a slow drift. Two people, side by side, moving further and further apart without either of them deciding to. I want to talk about that today, because I think it is more common than any of us say out loud. And I think it is more painful than being actually alone. A woman I know, I will call her Carol, has been married for 38 years. She is 69. Her husband is 71. They eat breakfast together every morning. They watch the same programs in the evening. They sleep on the same side of the same bed they have slept on for 3 decades. And Carol told me something last year that I have not stopped thinking about. She said, "I feel lonelier in this marriage than I have ever felt in my life. Not angry, not bitter, just honest and very, very quiet about it." If that landed somewhere in your chest just now, stay with me. There is something about being next to someone and not being reached. It is a particular kind of ache. You can see them, you can hear them breathe, you can pass them the salt, but there is a distance between you that no amount of physical closeness can touch. Part of what creates this is something that happened gradually. We stopped being present with each other. Not because we stopped loving each other, necessarily, but because life filled in around us. The children, the work, the obligations, the decades of busyness that kept us moving without ever asking whether we were still moving together. And then the children left, and the work slowed down. And we looked up and discovered that we had forgotten how to just be with each other without a task in between. And in 2026, that gap is even easier to fall into because there is always a screen. There is always something to look at that is not each other. A phone on the table, a tablet in the armchair, a television in every room. Your partner is right there, physically. But their mind is somewhere else entirely. And after a while, you stop trying to reach them, and they stop trying to reach you. What is left is presence without connection, a body in the room, a life shared on paper. But the thread between you has gone quiet, and neither of you knows quite when it happened, or quite how. And then there is what I call the performance. You go to your daughter's birthday dinner, and you are the couple everyone admires. 38 years together, still showing up, still side by side. And people say things like, "Look at you two. What a partnership." And you smile, and your husband smiles, and you refill your glass and move to the next conversation. And on the way home, you do not speak. This is the exhausting part that no one talks about. The energy it takes to maintain the appearance, the family gatherings where you play the role, the Christmas photographs where you stand close together and everyone says how lovely, the way you finish each other's sentences in public because you have heard the stories so many times that you know all the beats, even if you have stopped caring about the endings. And inside you are wondering when the last time was that you told him something real, something true, something that was not about the schedule or the grandchildren or what needs fixing in the house. Carol told me she had calculated it once. She said she thought it had been about 4 years since they had a conversation that was not logistical. 4 years of good mornings and dinner plans and what time are we leaving? 4 years of a functioning household and a quiet interior that nobody was looking after. You might wonder, how does it get to that? How do two people who once told each other everything become two people who only discuss schedules? It happens in small moments. A joke that does not land and nobody acknowledges it. A worry you mention and he brushes past. A feeling you share that is met with a practical response instead of any real understanding. And you think, fine, I will not share that again. And then you do not. And then he does something similar, and he does not share it with you. And the thing between you gets a little thinner, and a little thinner again, without either of you choosing it, without either of you noticing, until one day you do. This is what I call the slow closing down. Each of you protecting yourself from the small sting of being dismissed. Each of you pulling back just a little, just enough to feel safer. And after years of this, you have both withdrawn into yourselves so completely that you are sharing a home, but living separately inside it. You no longer tell him your fears. You no longer ask about his. You talk about what needs doing. You talk about the practical surface of the life you share. And somewhere, without a word being said, you have both agreed to keep it there. The conversations stay shallow, the evenings stay quiet, and the distance becomes so familiar that you stop registering it as distance at all. It is just the shape of things now. It is just how it is. When a relationship becomes a residency, that is the moment. And here is what I want you to understand about what this does to you. Research tells us that loneliness inside a relationship is harder on the body and the mind than loneliness in actual solitude. When you are alone, you know you are alone. You can grieve it. You can respond to it. You can make choices about it. But when you are with someone and still alone, there is a particular stress in that. Your nervous system knows something is wrong. There is a person right there. You should feel connected. You do not. And that gap between what should be and what is creates a kind of quiet anxiety that runs just below the surface, something that never quite switches off. Carol described it as always being slightly on alert, always monitoring, watching for signs that he might really see her today, trying to read whether this moment was safe enough to say something real, and then retreating again when it was not. That is exhausting. Not dramatically, not in a way that anyone would notice from the outside, but it wears at you over months, over years. It wears at something deep. And perhaps the clearest sign that something has broken down is this. You realize that your partner is the last person you would turn to in a real crisis. When something frightens you, you call your sister, your friend, your daughter, not him. Because somewhere along the way you stop trusting that he could hold it, not because he is a bad man, but because you have both been living at the surface for so long that going deeper feels impossible now, or unkind even, like asking too much of someone you have drifted too far from. So what do you do with all of this? The first thing I want to say is that noticing is not nothing. The fact that you can name what is happening, that you are living in proximity without connection, that is not a small thing. Many people spend years not naming it. They call it tiredness. They call it getting older. They call it just the way long marriages go. And they never look at it directly. You are looking at it. That matters. The second thing is that there are really only two questions worth asking, and you have to be honest with yourself about the answers. The first question is this: is there something still here to return to? Is there warmth under the distance? Did you once know how to reach each other? And is it possible that you both just forgot? If the answer is yes, if there is still something underneath, then the only real path back is honesty, not a confrontation, not a list of grievances, but a real conversation. One where you say, I feel far from you, and I miss being close, and I would like to try to find it again. That conversation is frightening. It makes you vulnerable in a way that you have protected yourself against for years. But it is the only door. The second question is harder, and it takes more courage to ask. Is there anything left to return to? Did the distance grow because the connection itself was never as deep as you needed it to be? Are you grieving a future you imagined rather than a past you actually had? If the honest answer to that second question is yes, then the bravery required is a different kind. It is not the bravery of opening up. It is the bravery of being truthful about what this is and deciding at 60 or 65 or 70 whether the years you have left are years you want to spend in a life that does not see you. Carol is still in her marriage. She told me she is not sure it is the right choice, but she is making it with her eyes open now. She named what was happening, and naming it changed something in her. She stopped performing. She stopped pretending she was fine with a life lived at arm's length, and she started asking herself quietly and honestly what she actually wanted. That is not a small thing. If you are sitting in that same quiet tonight in the room with someone and still somehow alone, I want you to know it has a name. It is real, and you are not imagining it. And the question that matters is not how you got here. The question is what you want to do with the years that are still in front of you. If this spoke to something in you today, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not already, subscribe so you are here for next week. I am Patricia, and this is The Porch. I will see you soon.